Good afternoon and welcome to the special session of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors. Today, September 18th. This time we're going to take a moment of reflection. Supervisor Hemmingson, could you lead us, please?
Absolutely. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're here to approve and authorize the county administrative officer to execute a legal service, agreement with Renee Public Laws Group to add Del Norte County to the Coalition of California Local Public Agencies, sponsoring amicus brief in support of the City of Boise's petition of writ of cert to the Supreme Court in the case Martin versus City of Boise, not to exceed $5,000. And I believe, Joel, you want to give us some talking points?
Yeah. So everybody by now is well familiar with the Martin v. City of Boise case. It basically held under the 8th Amendment we can't punish people for being homeless if there's nowhere for them to go. We have to allow them on public property. This has been a matter of considerable controversy for local governments. What this agreement is a coalition of cities and counties. There's 25 as of now. There are more considering at the last minute, like Del Norte is, where everybody will contribute no more than $5,000 to this law firm, who will write a brief in support of the City of Boise's petition to have the Supreme Court pick up the case and review it. It is not at the merits stage yet. It's just trying to get the court to look at it. It is a $5,000 retainer. If that ends up being more than the actual costs of the attorneys, every would get a pro rata share back. And the brief, the authors of the brief intend it to tout the efforts of local governments to address homelessness and point out some of the specific hurdles that they've had and ways in which the Martin v. City of Boise case makes those worse. And so there's a draft of the brief, but it's not final yet. It's not public yet. But they did give us some talking points, and they will explain the proactive and creative ways in which local public agencies in California are helping to ameliorate homelessness despite obstacles. And it will point out some confusing language in the brief about what kind of beds have to be available, and under what circumstances is it practically available or impractical. And then it goes into some of the specific hurdles that California agencies have, specifically with things like wildfires and camping, human waste, floods, and some CEQA review and the difficulty in building affordable housing. So if there are any other questions, I can try to answer, but that is the basic agreement you have in front of you.
Okay. I'm going to take public comment before I bring it back to the board. You guys good with that? So at this time, we'll take public comment on item number 3 of our agenda.
Good afternoon. Kevin Bingham, so glad to see you all. I'm very thrilled about this meeting today. I think it's such a step in the right direction, and I'm proud of you, Madam Chairperson, for bringing this forward. I've been in contact with the City of Boise attorney for a couple months now discussing this, and the attorney law firm in LA, William Cole, from Dunn and Gibson, or Gibson and Dunn. And he wanted to call in tonight, but we don't have a format for that. But I just support what you're doing. I think it's a step forward, and anything we can do to support Boise in their efforts to get some relief from the courts on this is a really positive move. And on another note, the Supreme Court will see our town and county's name This brief will go before the Supreme Court if they take it. And as William Cole from the law firm was telling me today, this brief will give a personal feeling to the court, to the justices on the bench. It won't just be a random thing. It'll make it more personal to them, with all of these cities joining in and saying, hey, this is affecting us in a great way. It's costing millions of dollars in law enforcement and personal property. I'm sure you all heard the paper was robbed. Triplicate was robbed the other night, $17,000 in damage. There's just been so much different causes and damage from the vagrancy, not just homeless per se. So I think this is just a very positive step, and I'm so proud of the board tonight for doing this. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Tony Barnes, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? My name is Tony Barnes. Thanks for calling this meeting. Really appreciate it. As you all know, this is an important issue facing not only our community, but communities across the country, particularly in California. California happens to house half of the nation's homeless, and you can all see the impact that it's having on us and on our tourism, on our businesses downtown, on the way of life for our community members. I just want to say that it's important that we support this. It's important that we join in this effort to bring this to the Supreme Court and see if we can get some resolution to this and some clarification. It's important to all of the communities nationwide, California, small communities like us. We're small and we're greatly impacted. I know that this is something that's on your mind. I know it's something that you're working with all the time. I also know it's not clear on what we can do. I've been active in this because I've been impacted as others have also. And so this is an important issue for all of us in this community. So again, thanks. I think it's very important that we support this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lupe Gutierrez. I just wasn't really clear on this, so I guess I want some clarification because you were talking about talking points, and I don't know if you were actually went over those talking points and if that included wildfires, human waste, building. So in the draft, what exactly, you referred to a draft and talking points, but it wasn't very clear how, if there was any resolution, what was being presented to in this draft to the Supreme Court. Do you know anything else about that? And my other question is why only 25 counties? I'm curious as to what counties are being represented. Are they like ours, or are they, you know, what's the demographics of those counties? So I just have questions really that I would like to have answered. You want to take about an hour after?
I'll do it now. The draft is attorney work product, so until it's finished, it will not be public. So that is not before the board. The talking points is what I was reading from, that's talking about what the draft will contain, what the lawyers intend to write in the draft, the position they'll take. And that is about the wildfires and the health and safety issues. As to why only 25, and it's not just counties, it's cities, so it is 25 out of, you know, over 450 possible California entities. I don't know. I don't know why they have or haven't. We learned about this very, very short notice. That's why the special meeting. So I don't have that information. And I don't have a list of the counties and cities.
Yeah, that would be really helpful to have. And the only reason I'm saying that is because it's nice to know if we're similar to the different counties and cities. And as far as the draft, I mean, if I'm giving an attorney money, I would really love to know what's in that draft before I hand them over money.
And he does. They just can't be made public yet.
it's in county counsel's office.
Okay.
It's going through it. It's not about to criminalize them. In
Mhm.
fact, it's very much the opposite. It's to make sure, I understand it is giving control back to the counties. There's so many unanswered questions when we talk about
Uh-huh.
this, and the one that always comes up, well, is, faith-based, or how many beds, and there's just a lot of different issues that it would take up.
Okay.
So, but the draft is not complete. We would be joining other cities that are hiring them, and am I saying this correct, Joel, to go forward and write the brief, but they certainly have been contacted as well as city council to, make sure it's going in the direction that we want it to. We
Okay,
don't
that's what I was
criminalize,
wondering
but
is,
we also want to have local control, because there's so many.
and I understand that, and I think that's a great idea. I would just, my concern would be is that, are we getting the input from the community without just the representation here? I mean, is there a process whereby that would happen? Because you're saying that, there's going to be a draft written with input, and is that input strictly from this board, from the attorney, from?
We're not writing it.
It's a little unorthodox because we're late in the process, but normally you enter an agreement like this, there's no brief yet, right?
Right.
You're hiring lawyers to write a brief.
Mm-hmm.
The agreement says that we can back out anytime we want. So if
Oh,
the brief
okay.
ends up being something that we don't feel like represents our county, we can get our name off it before it goes.
Oh, okay. That's
And
good to
I'm gonna
know.
move really quick so we can move along,
Okay.
please.
Thank
These
you.
are the counties that are included at this time, and more have been added. I think everybody kind of, you know what I mean? I think by tomorrow afternoon, you'll probably see this list go out. You agree, Joel? Right now, we got cities of Covina, Fairfield, Glendora, Laguna Beach, Lodi, Lompoc, Manhattan Beach, Manteca, Newport Beach, Redondo Beach, Sacramento, Salinas, Santa Buenaventura, Santa Rafael, Thousand Oaks, Torrance, and Vista. The counties are Fresno, Orange, Riverside, Sacramento, San Diego, San Joaquin, and Sutter at this point. And I know that's changed since I talked to the city yesterday, and I'm sure it'll change again by tomorrow. Does that clear up a few things? Okay, any other public comment?
Hello, Eileen Cooper. I don't think your mic is working quite properly, but I was sitting up
We're
front.
aware, we're trying to work on it.
That's
I'm not
okay.
sure
Um,
we want to break her.
Upon seeing this item this morning, I reviewed an important website that gives a very good legal background to this whole issue, and all the associated cases and their implication, and I copied a brief statement of the defining two paragraphs of the ruling of the latest in this. There's a very long legal history to this issue, and most of it speaks to the fact that homeless people, you can't criminalize them for just being that way. And I know that our county has limited funds for this issue, and so I don't want to squander our energy. I do think we could always be a friend of the court later, but when I look at the whole legal record and the whole history of it, I don't see this changing significantly. I see it as becoming more clear, but I think that if you read these two paragraphs, and I will provide them, and if I had time with the bus, I would have copied them for you, but please start these things at 10:35 or 10:15. Basically, as I've been saying, We have tools right now and to address this that we're not using. Yes, we don't have enough shelters, and so you cannot prohibit the homeless from using public lands. But the most important part of this ruling is the second part, and that's saying, even so, they don't necessarily get to stay everywhere, every place. You have discretion that you have not been using. And I think it would be more constructive to wait and see what the big counties turn up with this. Myself, I don't see any way with the legal history that I've reviewed going over decades that this ruling is going to change substantially. And the most important thing for us is make a map of where you want them to be. You can do that.
Any other public comment at this time? You can. Right behind you.
Are you proposing to use
I can't, you guys turn it on, I can't hear you.
If the proposal is to spend $5,000 to support a brief that would join Crescent City with all these other places in supporting this particular brief against the homeless, is that what you're proposing to do?
No.
It's not against homeless?
It's a brief to understand to go to the Supreme Court to have a better clarification of the current, current case. Is that a good explanation, Joel?
The Supreme Court will review cases if there's a conflict between jurisdictions, which there is, or if it's great public concern that the Supreme Court should review it itself. This petition is essentially arguing to the Supreme Court that this is a matter of such great importance that it should review it. It's not for or against homeless. It points out some of the specific challenges that local governments have and argues that that is very important and the Supreme Court should review it. I think is the fairest way to say it.
Is the proposal that Crescent City pay $5,000 to support this effort?
The county is considering entering into this agreement with the law firm.
It's interesting because in a recent meeting of True North regarding homelessness and the need for homeless services, we were advised that the county has no money for anything. No discretionary funds and no ability to even fund training for people who might be able to do something about some of the transitional housing needs of people in this community. I am a citizen and I certainly do not support this at all.
Any other public comment? No other public comment? All right. Gentlemen?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm concerned about why we're doing this as far as a rush to judgment here today. Is there a deadline that we couldn't meet on our regular meetings?
There actually is a deadline of noon tomorrow. They want to get the brief filed.
This is an amicus brief. This is a friend of the court, in this case the plaintiff, the city of Boise, Idaho. And there are at this point 25 plus counties and city governances who have been impacted since the 9th District Court of Appeals decision about a year ago, September, October of 2018. No one can dispute, other than resting and sleeping, there have been some collateral behaviors that have impacted in a negative way on our community. by coming through with this friend of the court and for funds, I'm not sure what the role of a co-litigant is with an amicus brief, if we'll actually have a say in terms of what the city of Boise does and as it presents to the Supreme Court. But I do support this because no one is saying to anyone you can't sleep and rest. But there's a great deal of confusion about what our law enforcement can and cannot do with regard to some of these collateral behaviors that no one in this room could condone. These folks, many are mentally ill, drug and alcohol addicted. They need help. And this doesn't change the other ladder which we are also walking up in terms of finding a suitable site or sites in which to find the necessary staging area, if you will, accept that term, to provide services to these folks who are in great need. That doesn't change, and we should continue. But according to the court, and I read the decision from the 9th District, we have to have enough beds to match our point-in-time count, which at this point is in somewhere between 400 and 600 people who are without shelter. But we simply cannot do that. We don't have, we can provide some shelter, but to go to that route, 600, we wouldn't be able to afford it. So I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court will offer some resolution, and on that basis, I will make the motion to approve and authorize the county administrator officer to execute a legal services agreement with Rennie Public Law Group to add Del Norte County to the Coalition of California Local Public Agencies, sponsoring an amicus brief in support of the City of Boise's petition of writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court in the case of Martin versus City of Boise, and those funds not to exceed $5,000 as requested.
Second.
Yeah, I know that once Roger's done speaking, everybody thinks it's all over, but I have a concern that that we're being treated the same in this particular case as Sacramento County. You said Sacramento County was on there on the list? Yes. And they have a huge budget, and they're paying $5,000, and we're paying $5,000. You know, for a small county like this, I think that this is going forward. I think it's very important that it goes forward. I think that for our county to have to pay this kind of money just to be listed or named on it, I can't support. I can't support taking this out of our general fund monies when I'm sure that this is going forward, regardless of whether we enter into this or not. So I can't support putting the same amount of money in our county of 26 or 7,000 people and counties that have hundreds of thousands of people the same amount of money. I have an issue with that.
Where did that, I mean, since there's no supporting documentation that we received, where did the dollar figure come from?
The $5,000, I don't know. There's a schedule of hourly rates in the agreement. You know, if you have 25 counties or agencies, each putting in $5,000, that's $125,000. If that amount isn't used up on those hourly rates, it'll be kicked back pro rata share, so equally to everybody. You know, but that's, even at the highest rate of $350 an hour, that's like 350 hours worth of work. I would hope they could do it in less than 350 hours of work, but I really have no idea what all they've done or what they put into it up to now. We haven't had that much time with this. I had a few email exchanges with the lawyer, but other than that, not a lot of information.
Yeah, well, that would be the hope.
Right.
Hopefully more counties and cities would join on to the suit. And I'm not in disagreement with any of the discussions that I've heard from the board so far today. The Supervisor Hemmingson makes some solid points. Supervisor Gitland makes some solid points. We do have to address the issue at some point in time. Del Norte obviously has a smaller problem than most communities throughout the state of California and other areas of the country, but we still have the problem. And the thing that bothers me the most about this, whether I'm out on the soccer field and the kids are kicking the ball around on Beachfront Park and mom's afraid to take the kids over to the bathrooms, or if I've got residents camping out on the beach every single night, and yet we've turned the corner of our economy, specifically with timber and commercial fishing, and now we're relying on a tourist-based economy, and we've got a large impact in some of our most beautiful locations where we're trying to bring people to. It's a fine balancing act, and I know this board, has been mentioned here today, has been very active at pursuing issues around homelessness and trying to find those areas of shelter. But there's behaviors that have been stated here today that are not conducive to the type of community that we want to create here long term. And we've got to get some of that local control back in order to get this thing to move forward. And even though it is a $5,000, if I think the more communities that stand together on this issue and try to get some ruling from the Supreme Court, if they're willing to take up the brief, better. So with that being said, I'd second the motion made by Supervisor Gitlin, if a second hadn't already been made.
Supervisor Brooks, that's second. I've been going back and forth because I was the one who was at that meeting, and I know we don't have a budget that will come out of a homeless budget. We don't have a homeless budget, but it would have to come from somewhere. And we would hope that more and more people would join. For me, because I am self-involved with this all the time, it is a concern. There are some of the unknowns. Our point-in-time study, just for clarification, is 188. But us coming up with a facility with 188 beds is pretty much impossible. So that's one of the issues. There's so many things for me in this, and the reason I believe in it is just for clarification. And I wanted to make sure that we're not criminalizing homeless, because that is not our goal. You know, it's to understand and to have control back what is best for Delmar County. I say it all the time. What works in Sacramento or what works in Boise or what works somewhere else isn't necessarily what works for us. And we need to understand and have control of what's going to work for us in our homeless situation and helping our homeless citizens. So, you know, I feel the same way. We have to take care of it. I hope that more than the 25 I spoke about will take up, so that our cost isn't at $5,000. I don't think it's just going to be $5,000. That is a cap, and we're hoping that it won't be as much. But it is a small price to pay to make sure that we have clarity, so that we can move forward and take care of the homeless issue that we do have in our county. So with that, we have a first and a second on the
Supervisor Hemmingson?
No.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?